So Bengal put out a tweet talking about NFL expansion, and the league hasn't expanded since 2002, so we're really overdue for it. Not to mention the fact that the major issues that the league was having with Qualcomm Stadium and the Oakland Coliseum have gotten resolved with the relocations of the Chargers and Raiders. I feel like now's a good time of any to at least start the conversation about relocation. So today, I'm just going to be going over the 8 expansion cities that I would choose if I were commissioner. First thing we're going to do is send the Chargers back to San Diego. I know I'm going to get people complaining about this. I really don't care. I've hated the Chargers moving to Los Angeles since it happened because LA is just not a football town, so I don't feel like they deserve 2 teams. So assume that the Chargers are back in San Diego with a brand new stadium, and that's not an issue at all because this is my video and I'm doing what I want. Secondly, the Colts are moving to the AFC East, and the Dolphins are moving to the AFC South because that's going to shorten drive time for division games with those 2 teams significantly. And I feel like it doesn't hurt rivalries too much because there's already a rivalry with the Colts and the Patriots, and they could probably figure one out with the Jets. And the Dolphins have a natural rivalry with the Jaguars, with them both being in Florida. But mainly, this is just a very easy, clear move to shorten drive time between games. For fans, obviously, drive time isn't an issue when it comes to the teams, but you're going to see as we add expansion teams that shortening drive time is definitely something that we need to try to do where we can. As far as league formatting goes for this hypothetical 40-team NFL, I feel like I can either add a 5th division to each league, or I can add 1 expansion team to each division just for competitive balance reasons because these expansion teams are likely going to be really awful starting off. It seems most fair to just have 1 in each division. Anyway, outside of that, nothing really is going to change except for we're going to have an 18-game season with an extra bye week thrown in there, but other than that, the rest of the league's going to look pretty much the same. First, I have a couple of honorable mentions that I heavily considered, one of them being Omaha. I'd definitely love to see a pro sports team in Omaha, and being from the Midwest, I know how big Cornhuskers football is. When you think Nebraska, you think of corn and football, basically. But I don't think that an NFL team would work there as of right now because the city's just too small, and I think they're probably too close to the Chiefs anyway. Another city with similar issues is Austin, Texas. I know the Bills threatened to move to Austin, but I'm putting another team in Texas today, and I just feel like maybe that's overdoing it, and I need to really spread the wealth out. Same thing goes for Columbus. Columbus, Ohio is something that I considered a lot, but I think they're too close to the Bengals. And I know how big football is in both Ohio and Texas, but really I should probably look to distribute the wealth of these teams throughout the country better. And that was kind of my logic with Sacramento. Sacramento was the first one out when it came to these expansion teams. I think Sacramento is a really interesting city. There's a spot for a stadium to be built at the old site of Arco Park that was never built. But overall, I just can't see the California taxpayers getting behind another stadium, so it makes more sense to go places other than California. Alright, first team we're going to add is we're going to add the St. Louis Battlehawks to the NFC North. Now, I know St. Louis has had 2 NFL teams that both left, yada yada yada. I don't care. The Dome is perfectly good for an NFL venue, and they approved a Riverside Stadium for the Rams that just didn't get built. So St. Louis is perfectly fine supporting another NFL team with their current stadium or building a new one. And just look at how passionate the fans are for the St. Louis Battlehawks of the XFL. Yeah, part of it is an FU to the NFL, but if you take the Battlehawks branding to the NFL, could you imagine how the Dome would be rocking if the Rams came back and played the Battlehawks? That would be insane. But ultimately, I decided to put them in the NFC North because there's so many teams out west that you're going to see. This just makes the most sense. Plus, you have a natural rivalry with the Bears. The Cardinals and Cubs is a massive rivalry in the MLB, and the Blues and Blackhawks is a massive rivalry in the NHL. So just having that Bears-Battlehawks rivalry just naturally be there just makes the most sense when it comes to adding a St. Louis expansion team. Alright, next up, I'm going to be adding the Oakland Invaders to the AFC West. And I already know there's going to be Poindexters in the comments saying, "Oh my god, you've brought the NFL back to San Diego, St. Louis, and Oakland? They just left there for a reason." I don't care. Build a new football stadium at the Howard Terminal site because it looks like the A's are going to be leaving for Vegas anyway. And you can't tell me that Oakland didn't have the most passionate fans when the Raiders were there. And yeah, I guess the Niners are still there in the Bay Area, but Raiders fans aren't going to go be Niners fans. That was a violent rivalry back in the day for a reason. So just give Oakland an NFL team back. And by putting them in the AFC West, even if the Oakland Invaders take a while to catch on and don't have the massive support that you ideally want in a year one for an expansion team, they still hate the Chargers, they hate the Chiefs, and they'll love the Raiders when they come back. So it just makes sense to have them in the AFC West if you are going to put a team back in Oakland. And honestly, it just breaks my heart that Oakland lost the Raiders, so we're making amends today. Alright, next up we're going with San Antonio. This was the Texas team that I was alluding to earlier, and we're sticking them in the NFC East. Now, the reason I'm sticking them in the NFC East is because the main thing preventing an NFL team from going to San Antonio is the fact that it's technically Cowboys territory and Jerry doesn't want a team siphoning fans from the Cowboys. So the argument here by putting them in the NFC East is it essentially gives the Cowboys another home game. The team would play in the Alamo Dome, and you can't tell me that San Antonio doesn't deserve an NFL team. They showed up to support the Commanders of the AAF, and they've shown up to support the Brahmas. The only XFL team that has had better attendance than San Antonio has been St. Louis, so I think that San Antonio has earned their shot at the NFL. So let's go ahead and bring the Brahmas up and stick them in the NFC East. Alright, our next addition is going to be the AFC South, and we are going to add the Memphis Hound Dogs. The Memphis Hound Dogs were a finalist when Carolina and Jacksonville were added to the league, and you might say, like, oh, well, Tennessee has the Titans, why do they need another team? Well, Tennessee is 3 hours away from Memphis, and Memphis and Nashville don't get along. But you haven't been able to see that in sports because Memphis has the Grizzlies and Nashville has the Titans and Predators, so there's no overlap there. This would give a perfect opportunity to really grow that Nashville-Memphis rivalry, and you know that whenever the Titans were in town, Memphis is going to show up and want to beat Nashville because of this little brother complex that they have. And I also feel like the NFL kind of wronged Memphis. Like I said, Memphis was a finalist for the Jacksonville and Carolina expansion, but the Oilers also played in Memphis shortly before they moved to Nashville while Nissan Stadium was getting constructed, and it went really poorly, but that's because Memphis felt like it was Nashville's product in their city. So now Memphis is finally going to have their own team, though they probably will need to construct a stadium, though. Alright, well, earlier we pulled 2 XFL teams. Now I think we should pull a USFL team, and we're going to bring up the Birmingham Stallions to the NFL. And I know a lot of people are going to say, like, oh, well, Birmingham's a small market, it could never support an NFL team, yada, yada, yada. But you have to understand the football culture that is Alabama. Like, the Crimson Tide are the biggest brand in college football by a country mile. And Auburn is a blue blood, too. And you also have to look at the fact that there's a clear hunger for pro football in Birmingham with the success of the Birmingham Iron and the fact that the USFL hub was Birmingham and was successful enough with the Birmingham Stallions obviously having significantly better attendance than the rest. But the point is, people in Birmingham care about pro football and they will show up. And by putting them in the NFC South, you get a natural rivalry there with the Falcons. As for where they're going to play, well, you're going to need to build a stadium in Birmingham. But until then, I guess you could play at like Legion Field or Protective, but those are not really NFL venues. So you would have to go to Tuscaloosa. And Tuscaloosa is built around the Crimson Tide football team, and it's a great stadium that's definitely NFL quality, so I'm sure the folks in Tuscaloosa wouldn't mind supporting an NFL team for a few seasons before the stadium's ready in Birmingham. As long as you have a few Tide players on the team, you're going to be good. Similar to the Birmingham Stallions, we're going to continue with bringing up another USFL team, and we're going to go with the Portland Breakers and stick them in the NFC West. Now, the Seahawks have been kind of by themselves up in the Northwest for a long time now, so I say we give them a nice natural rival with Portland. And Oregon definitely is a football market. Like, the Oregon Ducks are one of the biggest brands in college football, and there's a stadium for the Breakers to play there with the Portland Timbers soccer stadium. So that's just such a natural feel, especially with the fact that the only Big Four sports team that they have out there in Oregon is the Portland Trailblazers, and they have a lot of support, so why wouldn't the support continue for the Breakers in the NFL? This one just seems like a no-brainer, and I feel like the Seahawks and Portland Breakers rivalry would turn out to be one of the better in the league. Well, while it lasted, I hope you guys enjoyed kind of an effort at making geography make sense, because that's gone. So we're on my AFC East team now, and initially I was going to go Orlando, but Orlando is only an hour and a half outside of Tampa, and if you recall, I moved Miami to the AFC South, so Orlando here doesn't make any sense at all, not to mention the fact that they have a pro football team with the XFL Orlando Guardians, and they're not really showing up for them, so geography is out of the window at this point. I'm going Oklahoma City just because I think it's an interesting NFL market. Just looking at the support that the Oklahoma City Thunder got, they got there in like 2008, and they're already one of the most beloved NBA franchises despite not being great these last few years. And you also have to look at just how big the OU brand is, and Oklahoma State isn't a small football brand by any means, but there's a clear passion for football in Oklahoma. I know that they don't have a place to play right now. They'd probably have to play where OU plays in Norman, but I feel like once you get the stadium built in Oklahoma City, probably something downtown, with just the support that they've had for the Thunder, combined with the passion for football in Oklahoma, I feel like this would be a slam dunk. And for the 40th NFL team, I'm going to continue to bastardize geography by putting Salt Lake City in the AFC North. Yes, I know it makes zero sense, but we're going to roll with it. Now, I have to admit, I am very, very hesitant on this one because the AAF had the Salt Lake City Stallions, and that team did horrible in fan support. So there's a real question on whether or not the passion for football is here. But you also have to look at the just brand size of BYU, Utah, and Utah State. Utah State is one of the top group of 5 teams. Utah is a very respectable program, and BYU is one of the biggest brands in sports, really, mainly due to the Mormon religion surrounding it. So I think for this team, you would have to start them off playing at BYU Stadium in Provo, just to get that fan base support, and then eventually when they can build their own digs in Salt Lake City, obviously move them there. But you're going to have to start off in Provo and just hope that you get that fan base following you. And the main reason that I chose them over other cities that might be more deserving, like Sacramento, is because in all the other cities that I could have chosen, like a Sacramento, like an Austin, something like that, there's still a relatively easy travel distance if you really wanted to go see an NFL game. That's not really the case in Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is probably, at this point in the video, the biggest market that's like significantly separated from NFL franchises. So this is just giving the people of Utah and the surrounding areas a good opportunity to come catch an NFL football game and have their own team to support. Well, that's how my 40-team NFL would look, and I'm sure there's plenty of opinions on how wrong I am, so let me know in the comments. It'll help the algorithm for this video. But if you had a good time, be sure to like and subscribe, and maybe if you do, that'll motivate me to upload more than twice a year.